Hi everyone, and welcome back. This is the third segment of episode 2 of Earthling Conversations. I am Greta von Kirchmann, your host, and our guest today is Joe Giarratano. And he is telling us about the Peace Studies and Alternatives to Violence program that he started while he was an inmate in prison. So we're going to let him finish telling us about that program.
The Peace Studies program, like I said, was founded basically out of a need for guys who were really trying to get their acts together. And there were no programs in the system to really help them do that, because it wasn't about behavior modification. These guys knew how to modify their behavior. It was about really just wanting to find a different path in life. And the only way to do that was to give them ownership, let them create the program themselves. And that's what we did. These guys took responsibility, took charge of their own lives. And remember, we're talking about prison. Prisons can be very violent places. And some of these guys that I'm dealing with were known for violence.
Okay.
So who else, to get to design a program about nonviolence is a bunch of guys who were very familiar with violence.
Amazing.
But it had to be we had to take a holistic approach. One, it's introducing them to methods of conflict resolution and peace. But there's more to it. You have to find a purpose in life, and so it was a modular program. We had a job training program that we created, which is something that wasn't happening in prison. You could learn how to make shoes, not make shoes, but make shoes for the prison system. It's not shoes that people wear on the outside. So we started a high-tech job training program, computer literacy, audio-visual communications, and to bring in a sense of empathy and sense of responsibility, we brought murder victims' family members for reconciliation in and started a victim offender workshop. We were bringing victims of crime in to meet with prisoners and let them discuss the impact that crime has on their lives, and teach responsibility and acceptance and forgiveness and reconciliation. And we had our youth working with at-risk youth. We had judges sending in children to us, not as a scared straight program, because we didn't believe in the scared straight program, but just to relate to these kids, talk to them, share our life story. And we found that's what mattered. It wasn't about scaring these kids. It was about sharing your own personal experience.
Really? All right. You found that
is the best way, the
biggest impact.
Because that's what they wanted. They wanted the personal stories. These are kids that are using drugs. They're in gangs, and we had these guys in prison. And these guys could talk about their own personal experience with drugs, where they're at. And the odd thing is these kids were looking up to guys in prison. We were sort of like their role models, and.
All right.
And for a lot of these kids, prison was just a rite of passage. And now they're meeting guys in prison who were saying, no, you really don't want to do this. And this is why. We're not telling you, not because your parents say it's wrong, because the law says it's wrong, or this. It's not good for you. Take it from me, because this is what happened to me. This is where I'm at. This is where I was broken. I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I was running with the gang, and I was hurting people and hurting myself. And people got that. These kids got it, and it made a difference. But it also had a big effect on the guys. The one example I can give is a guy we called Santa. His name was Guy, but we called him Santa because he had all white hair and this big bushy white beard. He was one of the biggest dope dealers in the prison system in Virginia. He was supplying heroin throughout the entire Virginia prison system.
So I just say that one more time so people understand, because when you first told me this, I had to understand that this was an inmate within prison is supplying drugs to
heroin to the entire prison
system.
And guys were ODing. People in prison are ODing left and right. They're dropping like flies.
And you mean dying?
Dying, ODing from heroin overdoses. And one day he comes into the we were getting ready to have a board meeting about the program. He comes and he said, Joe, can I talk to you for a minute? And I said, sure. I said, what's up? He said, man, he said, I just got called into the warden's office. And I said, yeah, what? He said, he shook my hand and thanked me for not bringing drugs into the prison system anymore. And I said, okay. So he said, how the hell did he know that?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, people aren't dying as frequently. All the, the heroin supply is dried up. And I said, well, what'd you stop for? I said, you're the guy that said you never stop. You got natural life. You're never getting out.
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's the way you support your family. He said, he said, I've been working with these kids. And he said, I'm sitting there preaching to these kids and talking to these kids. And he said, I felt like a freaking hypocrite. He said, I couldn't sit there and tell them not to do this. And I'm in here basically selling drugs and drugs going probably out to other people all over the place. He said, so I stopped. He said, I felt like a hypocrite.
So that's an amazing story. So there's one of, I'm guessing many changed lives within the prison system who you created the program. So Marie Deans had compassion for the whole experience she had having a loved one murdered. And then she met you. You had, in a way, passing on the compassion, the mindset of compassion, and then you passed it on to other prisoners by creating the program.
Yeah.
And this particular man had come into the program, worked with you, and then he was working with kids outside the prison system from within the prison system. His life has changed. The compassion just keeps passing on and spreading from the prisoners to the youth and to the victims' families. So it's this whole web and community of people, all from this work that,
It's just like taking a pebble and dropping it into the water and it just ripples out. And
yeah.
That ripple hits another person, and that person drops the pebble, and it's this continuous rippling out, and it starts with one person, with one person caring.
And the
That's
fact
all
that
it
it was Marie Deans and then you from within the prison system, and I hope and I want people to grasp how this applies to our current world where. There's a lot of turmoil and a lot of people saying conflict is inherent, and I feel like you prove that is not the case, because you are one person who made all of these changes from within the prison system and teaching the outside world, outside the system, many fundamental human things from within the prison system. It's truly remarkable.
The one thing that we have in common, all of us have in common,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you are, no matter what your station in life is, we've all suffered something. We've suffered loss, we've suffered pain. And if we can tune into that and recognize our own suffering, we have you can realize that your suffering isn't unique in the sense that you're the only one suffering. We all suffer.
Right?
And knowing that, knowing your own pain and what you felt, you don't want anybody else to experience that. And you would hope that somebody would help you with yours and help you get through this process.
Yeah.
Well, it takes that. Well, if you recognize that, it's just a matter of looking at your neighbor, looking at your child, looking at your husband, your wife, your parents, or whoever,
Mm-hmm.
and know that we're all in this together.
And at this point, I'm going to just say something political, because politics is just the way our society is organized, and really, so that if your neighbor is a Republican, a Democrat, somebody with whom you don't agree, but on this deep fundamental level of humanity, really we can surpass all of that and dig in and use compassion. And again, that's what you did, because from within prison you worked with people who were the prison officials and the inmates, and it seems like you consider everyone the same. You hold them responsible for what
Everybody's
they do,
responsible.
but also recognize that someone was compassionate to you, and you were thus compassionate to all of these people. It's amazing.
And no matter, Republican, Democrat, prison guard, cop, prisoner, criminal, not a criminal, before you were all that, you were a human being. And if we
Yeah.
remember that at the start,
Okay.
it's much, look for the similarities. Find the similarities, and if you find the similarities, the differences become less and easier to bridge.
Perfect. All right, because we're going to wrap it up for today. We're going to end this episode, but we will have Joe back to tell many more stories. There are many more important ideas and stories. If you will come back.
And let me ask one thing.
Okay.
Anybody that's watching this,
Okay.
you get in touch with Greta's website, you have any questions, send them in to her and we can try to answer them.
All right, great. So this is how you can get in touch with us. You can indeed follow the links that I provide to my website and my different platforms. But also, Joe, can you tell us about the website where people can learn more about you?
Yeah. Anybody who wants to learn more about my story and where I've come from can go to freejoeg.com. It hasn't been updated in a while, but there's a wealth of information. It would take you months and months to go through to read. And some of my writings are up there as well.
All right, so I'm going to post that as well. So there's just so much information, and this is about many things, including the power of one person with compassion taking action. And each of you out there listening or watching this is that person as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Joe, for
Thanks for
talking
having
with
me.
me today, and thank you all for joining us. I'd like to say love, light, peace, and power. And this is Greta von Kirchmann signing off for Earthling Conversations.